좋다.
맛없진 않은 게.
야, 맛없지 않은 게.
간은 딱 맞네.
맛있다.
약간 인절미인데 팥이 들어가니까 되게 오묘하네.
저는 딱 그 느낌인데 왜 인절미 프라이팬에 구워 먹을 때 늘어지잖아요. 그런 느낌.
역시 근데 뭐든지
간을 맞춰 잘 맞아요.
내가 해서 바로 먹으니까 훨씬 더 맛도 배가 되는 거 같아.
배고프니까 맛있네.
Time to set the facts straight. Get Korea right. K-culture is sweeping the globe. K-pop, K-drama, K-movie, K-food, and even K-beauty. Korean cultural content is gaining more and more fans worldwide. It's indeed the golden age of K-culture. But with this growing interest comes an increase in misinformation about Korea. There's so much inaccurate information out there. Even AI can sometimes get it wrong. So, we must set things straight and correct all the misinformation. So here's the plan. The Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, VANK, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. The U.S.-Israeli war with Iran has now entered its third day, and President Donald Trump says it could last weeks. The U.S. leader also acknowledged that he had not ruled out sending ground forces into Iran. Iran says it will attack any vessel trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil transit routes. It also launched drone attacks on energy facilities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, both key U.S. allies in the Gulf. President Lee Jae-myung, who's on a state visit to Singapore, attended a summit on artificial intelligence and called for deeper cooperation in AI. He said South Korea will establish a $300 million global fund in Singapore by 2030, focused on investing in promising AI and deep tech startups from both countries. We begin this morning with the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. It's now been 3 days since the attack on Iran was launched, and U.S. President Donald Trump now says the war could last 4 to 5 weeks and refused to rule out deploying U.S. ground troops to Iran. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
3 days into the Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran, U.S. President Donald Trump justified the assault. Speaking to the press at the White House on Monday local time, Trump said the decision was made to thwart Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and to eliminate its naval assets. Trump also vowed to pursue the war for as long as necessary.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister.
The attacks have killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, sunk Iranian warships, and hit more than 1,000 targets so far. Trump added that the operation could last to 4 to 5 weeks, possibly longer, and could even include the deployment of ground forces.
But whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks. But we have capability to go far longer than that.
Trump's Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, insisted that the operation was not the beginning of an endless war, while the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that while the president has the option of doing so, the U.S. military is not currently postured to deploy ground forces. In terms of casualties, at least 550 people in Iran have been killed, according to Iranian Red Crescent, while 6 U.S. service members were also killed over the past 3 days, according to the U.S. military. And in the U.S., the public has expressed its dissatisfaction with the operation. Nearly 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of military action against Iran, as most believe a long-term military conflict between the two nations is likely, according to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And Iran has declared the Strait of Hormuz closed and threatened to attack any vessel that attempts to pass through the key oil choke point. The move has sent energy prices sharply higher and raised fears of major disruptions to global oil and gas supplies. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has declared the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz closed to all vessels. According to Iranian state media on Monday, a senior advisor to the Guard's commander-in-chief said the strait is shut and that any vessels trying to transit it would be attacked by the Revolutionary Guards or Iran's regular navy. If enforced, the move would effectively halt commercial shipping at one of the world's most critical energy choke points. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow entrance to the Persian Gulf, through which about 1/5 of global oil exports passes. Tankers using the route transport oil and gas from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran, with much of it destined for Asian markets. Meanwhile, tensions escalated further on Monday as Iran launched drone attacks on energy installations in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, both key U.S. allies in the Gulf. Qatar's defense ministry said Iranian drones targeted a power plant and an energy facility. Shortly afterward, Qatar Energy announced it would halt production, a move that sent global natural gas prices sharply higher. Oil prices also continued to climb amid fears of supply disruptions and potential shipping bottlenecks. Brent crude futures for May delivery rose 6.7% to $77.74 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate gained 6.3% to $71.23. Despite the surge, some analysts noted that the increase was smaller than expected, as earlier projections had warned that oil could approach $100 per barrel. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And tensions in the Middle East are now sparking concerns over potential energy disruptions and the impact on South Korea's economy. Officials say contingency plans are in place and that they're moving swiftly to respond. Our Kim Jun-ho has more.
Warnings from Iran telling vessels not to enter the Strait of Hormuz have raised concerns for import-dependent economies. South Korea relies on the Middle East for over 70% of its crude oil and around 20% of its LNG, making it particularly vulnerable to any disruption. The closure would force tankers to take alternate, longer routes, raising shipping costs and causing delivery delays, while experts warn oil prices could climb as high as $100 a barrel. That would drive up costs for key industries in South Korea, while adding to inflationary pressure and weighing on exports tied to the Middle East. In response, the government has stepped up emergency checks as tensions in the Middle East escalate. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources held an interagency meeting Monday, warning that global oil and gas prices could remain volatile, but stressed the country is prepared for a prolonged crisis.
We have stockpiles covering 208 days of crude oil and refined products, and we are confident that supply can be maintained even if the situation becomes prolonged.
The presidential office also moved to calm public concerns. Speaking to reporters during a visit to Singapore, top security advisor Ri Song-nak said there was no need for undue alarm.
We are thoroughly prepared across all areas, including the real economy, financial markets, and national security. And the presidential office is maintaining an emergency response mode.
He added that the situation remains in its early stages and that the government will keep a close watch while preparing measures for a range of possible outcomes. Kim Jun-ho, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign ministry has issued a temporary special travel advisory for 7 Middle Eastern countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. The advisory went into effect as of Monday at 6 p.m., with the ministry urging citizens planning to visit the region to cancel or postpone their trips, and advising those already there to move to safer locations. Oman, Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait are also included in the advisory. Under the measure, areas currently under Level 1 and Level 2 advisories will be raised to a special Level 2.5 alert, while Level 3 zones will remain unchanged. A special travel advisory can last up to 90 days and is issued in response to urgent short-term risks. And now for a closer look at the conflict between the U.S. and Iran and how it's expanding across the region. We're joined today by Dr. Lee Ji-soo, visiting researcher at the Institute of Middle East Studies. Dr. Lee, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So Iran's supreme leader has been killed in a strike by the U.S. and Israel. What does this death mean for the country, and what are the diplomatic and economic motives behind the U.S. attack?
Iranian supreme leader is not just a political figure. He is seen as God's representative on earth, the highest religious authority, and the most powerful decision maker in the country. So in many ways, he embodies the very foundation of the Islamic Republic established in 1979. He is the symbolic and ideological guardian of the Islamic Revolution itself. That's why Khamenei's death is far more than the passing of a national leader. Because of his age, there had long been quiet discussions about what Iran might look like after him, but the fact that he was killed suddenly in a U.S. strike changes the equation entirely. It raises serious questions not only about succession, but about the stability and future direction of Iran's entire theocratic system. The Trump administration has argued that it detected signs of an imminent Iranian missile attack and decided to act first. Their position is that waiting to absorb the strike could have resulted in significant casualties among U.S. forces and its allies. So, from Washington's perspective, this was framed as a defensive preemptive move, striking first to prevent greater damage later. At the same time, this military operation likely reflects growing frustration in Washington. Nuclear negotiations with Iran had resumed after an 8-month pause, but there was very little meaningful progress. Some analysts see this strike as a clear demonstration of President Trump's second-term doctrine of peace through strength, the idea that diplomacy is only effective when backed by credible military power. So there is also an energy dimension to consider. The Trump administration has been focused on strengthening America's leverage in global energy markets. By taking this step, Washington may gain indirect influence over Iranian oil exports in the future.
Right, so what's next for Iran's leadership? How does Iran choose its supreme leader? And who are some of the potential contenders to replace Khamenei?
Until a new supreme leader is formally selected, Iran will be governed by a 3-member leadership council. That body reportedly includes President Masoud Pezeshkian, Judiciary Chef Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejei, and Ayatollah Ali Reza Arafi, a member of the Guardian Council. Some Western media are suggesting that one of these 3 figures could eventually be selected as the next supreme leader. Also, other names are being discussed. Ali Larizani, currently serving as a secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, is also being mentioned as a possible successor. He is reportedly someone Khamenei trusted with broad authority during times of crisis. Another frequently mentioned figure is Mustafa Khamenei, the Supreme Leader's second son, who is believed to enjoy backing from the elements of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Under Iran's constitution, the supreme leader is chosen by the Assembly of Experts, a body made up of 88 senior clerics. They elect the leader through a secret ballot, and the candidate must secure a majority vote of those present. The person selected has to be a cleric with strong expertise in Islamic law or Sharia, as well as demonstrated political and administrative judgment. However, it is also possible that the current theocratic framework itself could face deeper structure change. If the system weakens significantly, an alternative leadership model could emerge. Actually, President Trump appears to be factoring in that possibility, openly encouraging the Iranian public to push for political change. In that context, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of the former Iranian monarchy, has stated that he will be willing to return to Iran and help lead the transitional government. That said, there is still no clear or unified alternative on the table. So at this point, multiple scenarios remain possible, and the direction Iran ultimately takes is far from settled.
I see, and Iran has warned that it'll attack any ship trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. What does this tell us about Iran's next steps, and how might this affect countries around the world?
Yeah, as you said, tensions are rising around the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes. Any instability there immediately raises global energy concerns. The current Iranian leadership has made it clear that it does not intend to negotiate with the United States. Instead, it has responded with missile and drone attacks targeting U.S. military bases in the region, as well as American allies. In particular, Iran has been using large numbers of the Shahed 136, which is described as a suicide drone. The key point here is cost asymmetry. The Shahed 136 is relatively inexpensive to produce, but intercepting it requires sophisticated and costly air defense missiles. In that sense, Iran appears to be pursuing a strategy aimed at exhausting the air defense systems of U.S. bases and regional partners. It signals that Tehran is not prepared to back down easily, and Iran's regional proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and pro-Iranian Shiite militias in Iraq, have also stepped up attacks against U.S. forces and allied interests. But Iran itself was significantly weakened by joint U.S.-Israeli strikes last year, and the same is true for the elements of the so-called axis of resistance. So while the rhetoric is strong and the tactics are disruptive, it remains uncertain how much sustained or strategic damage Iran and its partners can realistically inflict on the United States or Israel at this stage.
Right, and after the U.S. attack, Iran's retaliatory strikes are now affecting nearby areas, and that includes Dubai and Qatar. Could it lead to a wider war? And how do you think the security situation in the Middle East region will play out?
Yeah, as we've seen over the past few days, Iran is not only targeting Israel and U.S. military bases, but also pro-American Gulf countries such as Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, and even Saudi Arabia. Qatar hosts the largest U.S. military base in the Gulf, and the others are close U.S. partners in the region. For Tehran to carry out large-scale strikes directly against neighboring Gulf states is highly unusual. And the damage hasn't been confined to military sites. Even civilian infrastructures, such as hotels, has also been caught up in the attacks. So at the moment, major Gulf airports, including those in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha, have faced significant disruptions, with flights grounded amid security concerns. The UAE reacted swiftly, announcing it would close its embassy in Iran, and GCC foreign ministers gathered for an emergency meeting, cautioning that if the attacks don't stop, military actions against Iran cannot be ruled out. So far, none of the Gulf states has carried out actual direct military retaliation against Iran, but tensions remain extremely high. So given the pace of escalation, the situation remains fluid, and the coming days will be critical in determining whether this crisis stabilizes or widens further.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the situation plays out. All right, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
President Lee Jae-myung attended a summit on artificial intelligence during his state visit to Singapore and called for deeper cooperation in AI. He vowed to establish a $300 million global fund in the country by 2030, focusing on AI and deep tech startups. Here's our Blue House correspondent Song Yu-jin with the details.
Better together. That was President Lee Jae-myung's message at the Korea-Singapore AI Connect Summit in Singapore on Monday.
인공지능은 산업 구조와 일자리 그리고 우리의 일상까지 바꾸는 핵심 동력이자 국가 경쟁력을 좌우하는 전략 자산이 됐습니다. 세계적 수준의 인공지능 역량을 갖춘 한국과 싱가포르가 손을 맞잡는 것은 필연적이고 또 매우 반가운 일입니다.
Noting that both countries have overcome their limited land and natural resources through human capital and technological innovation, Lee said it is time to channel that strength into AI. To that end, President Lee unveiled 3 key initiatives. First, South Korea will establish a $300 million global fund in Singapore by 2030. This will be Seoul's first offshore global master fund focused on investing in promising AI and deep tech startups from both countries. Second is the Korea-Singapore AI Alliance, a strategic framework bringing together policymakers, industry leaders, and the scientific community.
기업과 대학, 스타트업이 서로의 지식과 자원을 공유하며 협력하는 개방형 혁신 생태계의 시발점입니다. 창의적인 아이디어가 현실로 구현되고 청년들이 지속적인 도전과 성장을 이어갈 수 있는 굳건한 기반이 될 것으로 믿습니다.
Third, the two sides agreed to expand joint AI research to help tackle global challenges. With such efforts, President Lee says South Korea and Singapore will be able to shape the AI industry, a field currently dominated by the US and China.
제조 분야라든지 또는 실용적 영역에서는 우리가 얼마든지 세계 1위를 해낼 수도 있겠다. 사람을 중심으로 한 연구와 개발 그리고 새로운 응용 영역의 개발은 아마도 양자가 협력해서 얼마든지 새로운 영역을 만들어낼 수 있겠다.
Following the event, President Lee also visited demo booths of Korean AI firms doing business in Singapore. He and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung later attended a state dinner hosted by the Singaporean president and his spouse. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung has nominated ruling Democratic Party lawmaker Park Hong-keun to head the Ministry of Planning and Budget. The Blue House said on Monday that Park was selected for his expertise in fiscal policy. The four-time lawmaker currently serves on the National Assembly's Finance and Economic Planning Committee and previously chaired the Parliamentary Special Committee on Budget and Accounts. The ministerial post has been vacant since President Lee withdrew his earlier nominee Lee Hae-hoon, following allegations related to real estate fraud and workplace bullying. Also on Monday, the president nominated Hwang Jong-woo, a veteran official at the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, to serve as its next minister. Minister nominees must undergo confirmation hearings at the parliament, though their appointments will be decided by the president.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In the Middle East, friendly fire by Kuwait has shot down 3 U.S. fighter jets. Kuwaiti Defense Forces on Monday accidentally targeted the U.S. jets while providing support for combat operations against Iran. All 6 crew members successfully ejected from the aircraft and are in a stable condition. The incident occurred as Iranian missiles and drones filled the skies over Kuwait. An investigation into the incident is now underway. In the U.S., Austin police have identified 2 college students killed in a bar shooting that wounded 14 others early on Sunday in downtown Austin, Texas. Austin police on Monday named the victims as 19-year-old Ryder Harrington and 21-year-old Savitha Shan. 3 other victims remain in critical condition. They were shot dead by a gunman who opened fire from an SUV before continuing the assault on foot with a rifle. Police officers shot dead the gunman Indiaga Dian at the scene. Dian was wearing a sweatshirt with the words "Property of Allah" written on it, and the FBI and Austin police said they are investigating the shooting as a potential act of terrorism. Officials said Dian legally purchased the guns in San Antonio in 2017 and have not previously been on the FBI's radar. Wall Street staged a resilient recovery on Monday as investors shrugged after U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran rattled global markets. While the Dow Jones dropped 0.15%, the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 0.36% as buyers rushed towards AI giants like NVIDIA. The S&P 500 also ended the day with little change, edging up 0.04%. Despite the geopolitical turmoil, analysts suggest investors are treating the conflict as a temporary disruption rather than a long-term economic shift. Defense and energy sectors saw significant gains, while travel stocks plummeted under the weight of rising fuel costs. Airports across the Middle East canceled thousands of flights as joint U.S. and Israeli war on Iran disrupted regional airspace for a 3rd day. Flight trackers have said more than 4,000 flights a day were canceled across the Middle East, leaving hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded. On Monday, more than 70% of flights to the UAE and the Qatar remained grounded as regional governments enforced strict airspace closures. Dubai airports announced a limited resumption of flights late on Monday. Industry officials warned the disruption will worsen and carry significant consequences if the conflict continues.
Today marks the first workday of March and the start of the new semester. Overnight rain and snow have tapered off, but it was a cold and cloudy start for the capital region. However, the greatest concern is heavy snow in the mountainous regions of Gangwon-do province, with up to 20 centimeters of more snowfall expected through tonight there. Meanwhile, the East Coast will see rainfall, and Gyeongsang-do provinces and Jeju Island could see 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall. And this afternoon, Seoul and Daegu will both getting up to 12 degrees Celsius. And tonight, for those observing the Jeongwol Daeboreum full moon, a total lunar eclipse will occur. The western regions will begin to clear toward the evening, allowing a view of the eclipse except along the East Coast. And this week, afternoons stay warmer than norms, but another round of rain and snow this Friday will bring a brief cold snap to the country this weekend.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Are you curious about Korean cultural heritage?
If you are a fan of Korean culture and history, listen up. Korean cultural heritage is based on a 5,000-year history.
The whole country is like a massive museum because it possesses such diverse cultural properties. Let's not wait any longer and take a look.
First, for beginners, for those who are not familiar with Korea, let's start with the world-famous list.
You can see how Korea's beautiful traditional patterns and historical features have been preserved.
And don't forget to experience Korea's intangible cultural heritage. From Gangangsule to Talchum, there's just so many exciting cultural heritages to experience.
These are for intermediate level tourists who have already visited Korea and its famous attractions. You might even be standing in a World Heritage Site right now.
How about searching for intangible cultural heritage that you can experience? 한소리, 제주 해녀 diving, 김장. Make some unforgettable memories while having fun.
Last but not least, the advanced level. It's the memory of the World Register. Korea possesses an extensive documentary heritage. Korea is serious about documentation and preservation.
A tour of Korean cultural heritage will become a legacy of your own.
Why not make your own Korean cultural heritage travel itinerary?
Isn't it fascinating?
Held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the state We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insight, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, March 3rd, here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Ki.
Good morning.
Good morning. And also Niles with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So a new month has begun, and in Korea, March always brings a sense of starting over, particularly for students. It's the season of new classrooms, new teachers, and hopefully new friends. So what does this time of the year mean for students in Korea, Ki?
Sure. In most Western countries like the United States that I was in, the new academic year typically begins in September. In Korea, however, or many other Eastern countries like Japan, the school year from elementary and middle school to high school and even universities officially starts in early March, and today is that day. It's a new haircut, new shoes for kids, new backpack maybe. Kids get excited to see new friends in a new class with a new teacher.
Always shopping for new school supplies. Exactly. I remember it was always so exciting and fun. So what about you, Nayo?
Yeah, by now all the entrance ceremonies are probably being held all over at schools everywhere. But I didn't personally love school. I don't know how many people do, but the academic aspect of it may have been tedious. But there was something very exciting about starting a new year or new school and seeing your friends again after vacation and becoming maybe a bit taller. I hope all the students who have just started at a new school and those who are coming back to a new grade enjoy the day and spend the day with excitement and looking forward to the future.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, not always loving the homework part of it, but definitely loving that first day energy. There's something about a new school year that makes everything feel possible. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. With a new school year now underway, it's a time to look at how today's classrooms are changing. From Korea's low birth rate to rapid advances in technology, the learning environment is evolving faster than ever. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at how classrooms differ from the past, what defines the new generation of millennial parents, and what kind of school environment families hope to see in the future. As we just saw in the video, Korea's classrooms are changing in ways that many people can feel in their everyday lives. Many of these changes are noticeable not just to students, but also to parents and teachers. So, how do the schools of today compare with what they kind of used to look like in the past, Ki?
Sure. My generation? Okay. So the number of students has dropped significantly for sure. As someone from the so-called M's generation, millennial born in 1980s like me, I remember having around 40 students or sometimes even 50 in a single classroom during my elementary school year, and go back even further to our parents' generation, and class sizes reached as many as 60 students. So looking at more detail, if you take a look at the screen, last year the national average number of students per class stood at 20.9, down from 24.6 in 2016 and 22.1 in 2020, continuing a steady decline. Besides schools, education-related industries and the government's efforts, schools are, perhaps more than anywhere else, where the impact of falling birth rates can be most clearly felt and seen.
Right, and that really shows how dramatically demographics are reshaping education. The classroom itself has become a reflection of Korea's declining birth rate. So obviously with fewer students, how has the learning environment kind of changed now?
I guess this is one positive side. It makes it possible for teachers to pay a little more attention and provide a more individualized attention for each student. And students now also have a wider range of options when it comes to education, with many schools offering small group activities and after-school programs. Personal tablets are provided to students starting last year. AI-powered digital textbooks have been introduced to some grades. And in various schools, native-speaking foreign language instructors are there on staff to help support the children to learn other languages better. So there's more options, more concentration with the lesser number of students.
Right. so classrooms are not only getting smaller, but education itself is becoming far more personalized and technology focused than before. And naturally, this kind of change is obviously also reshaping the role of parents. So how are millennial parents like yourself different from past generations?
So the millennial parents like me and my parents' generation are obviously different. They prefer communication online, value more horizontal relationships, and place strong emphasis on experimental learning for their children. And in response, kindergartens and schools are taking these traits into account, so sharing photos and daily activity logs through dedicated apps, often on a near daily basis. And parents can leave the comments or messages directly on the platform, creating an open channel of communication with teachers. So I brought some stuff. So if you take a look just like this, you can take a look at the app to see your kids.
The teachers
pictures.
are uploading photos
Right, they're
onto that?
almost daily basis or weekly, whereas in my era, you only get this old yearbook. And that's me, and this was
very classic.
Literally from 35 years ago. But you can see the difference. And towards the end, if you like any of the picture, what you can do is you can pretty much make an album like this, based on the pictures that I have, and you can select it on your own. So, you can see the time of change.
So you can choose the photos that are uploaded on the app, and then you can make
Exactly.
an album just for your kid, basically. That's amazing.
It's a personalized yearbook.
Wow, that's just really cool. So it really sounds like schools and parents are now connected almost in real time, with communication becoming much more interactive and personalized. So how are today's parents then, on the other hand, influencing schools and also education culture now?
Right. As a millennial myself too, millennial parents tend to be more proactive than the previous generations. In particular, if they believe something will directly benefit their child, they're really the go-getter types. They tend to take very active step towards it. And these days, parents say what matters most in their children's education is tailored to my child's needs and levels, and it also has to align with my parenting philosophy and my educational philosophy for my child. So communication is a little bit more active these days. As a result, compared to parents in the past, that they're more likely to file complaints or make certain requests to schools. However, since schools are institutions that provide education to groups, it's important to recognize that they cannot fully tailor to each individual parent and student. So there's a bit of a tricky ground to work with there, but I do believe communication and working together with teachers is important.
So all this highlights the new challenge schools face today, responding to diverse parental expectations while maintaining fairness within a collective educational system. So to get a personal perspective, we're going to talk to a father of 2 children. And that conversation will take place right after a break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Hassan from Egypt, who's a father of 2 children. Hello, Hassan. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. So, what grades are your children in? And I'm sure since today was the first day of the new term, I'm sure you're quite busy. So how did you prepare for this new term?
I have 2 kids. One is a girl. She's in 4th grade in elementary school, and the other one is still in kindergarten. So they are very excited about this new year, because especially the young one, the 4th grade, she's as excited because she's moving to the next level, and with her own friends, her best friends, all of them are in the same classroom this year, so she's very happy about it. But the second one, the young one, he usually complained about he wants to go to school with his sister, why he's still young, why he's not growing. So, but this year he's moving from daycare to kindergarten, which is related to the same school with his sister. So he thinks he's going to school as well. But both of them are very excited about it. In the morning, actually, we didn't do that much different thing, because they, as you know, school in Korea is continuously, even though they were in vacation, but they still went to school. My daughter still went to after school classes, because we are both parents are working parents, so nobody to take care of them at home. So it's good thing about Korea that education is continuous.
Okay. Well, obviously, schools back in Egypt and school in Korea are different, but how do today's schools are compared to with your own school days?
I am also from the 80s. I have heard you before talking about that. So it was totally different about from now. And during my days, it was just like teacher-led classroom, and focused on what the teachers say, what the teachers do. But nowadays, it's focused more on the students, on the child. And there are a lot of exciting things they do at school. They are very happy to go to school. Unlike myself, it was very hard to wake up in the morning to go to school. So here nowadays, they are like there's a lot of technology in the school and a lot of interactive learning environment in the classroom. And teacher it's not as how do I say? It's not as the more focused on discipline like my days. My days was did you do your homework? Didn't you do your homework? Come on, memorization, and so yeah, it's so different.
Right.
Kids nowadays are excited to go to school.
Wow.
One more thing, they are not excited about finishing the school because they will go to private academy, and that's where the memorization starts. So it's a good thing about the public school or the regular school, but about the private education, it's a little bit hard for kids. But as for my children, they are still young, so they're enjoying their life.
That's very good to hear. You pointed out different aspects of the education culture here in Korea as well as your home country. What are some changes you would like to see in school or for education authorities to improve for the future of education?
Actually, education system is great so far in Korea. It's one of the best in the world, and I'm sure the government is doing whatever they can to improve the education system. But there are some challenges, like as you mentioned before, the number of students is dropping. So it might be a good thing, but it might be because it's a good thing because they can focus more on the little number of students. But I noticed in Seoul, for example, where I live, in some areas of Seoul, the number of students is actually big, huge, like more than 30, 40. And in some areas where I live, my daughter's classroom is 18 students just. So it's the very big gap between the numbers in different areas of Seoul. It depends on the demographics, yeah. But what I would like to see improving is more communication between the parents and the teacher, and especially the multicultural families. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for a Korean teacher to communicate with multicultural parents, especially if the mother is a foreigner. Not for me, but I have a background about education. In my case, my wife is Korean, so there's no problem. But for other foreign parents, where the mother is important in this level, is not Korean, so it's very difficult to communicate with the parents. But I heard also they have a coordinator in those areas where there are many foreigners living. So might be good to increase this kind of coordinators who can speak the native language of those people. And also to include this their native language in the curriculum for as a kind of culture give and take. Not just the Korean people, not just the foreigner study Korean culture, but also Korean students can study the foreign culture, so they can communicate with their peers who are living in Korea with the increasing number of foreigner and globalization in Korea. So it would be good for in the long run. Also, yeah, extracurricular activities in the schools these days is great. It's wonderful. They learn a lot of things after school. I wish they include more extracurricular activities and focus on teaching foreign languages, of course, English, and increase the native teacher in the school, because I heard earlier that they reduced the native teachers number in order to give the chance to Korean teachers to teach English. They are great. They're good. But teaching is not just about learning the grammar or learning how to talk or communicate. It's about learning the culture itself. So exposing Korean students to foreign culture with a native speaker from English or from another country, it would be good for the society in the future to be open-minded.
I think you made a really good point, because there is a increase of multicultural families in Korea, so it's really important, I think, for Korean schools to recognize that and also accommodate that for both the students and for students, the Korean students, as well as the students from the multicultural families. So I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I also hope that your kids have a great new school year as well this year.
They are very happy. They enjoy their life at school. They couldn't wait to go to school, actually, and we had to ask them to go to sleep early, but because they were so excited, they couldn't sleep early.
Great.
But we were trying to adjust their sleeping time.
That's good to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Hassan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we just spoke with a parent originally from overseas who's raising 2 children here in Korea about how his family is preparing for the new school term, how today's schools compare with his own childhood experience, and what he hopes to see from schools and the education authorities going forward. So we also wanted to hear directly from our viewers, so we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking what is the biggest difference between schools in the past and today. So here's what the results showed. A majority of respondents, 65%, pointing to a decline in teachers' authority. Meanwhile, 17% said education has become more diverse, while 15% highlighted stronger protection of students' rights. Only 3% felt that student care has become closer or more personalized. So that's quite interesting. It suggests people feel classrooms have changed not just academically, but in terms of authority and relationships, with discipline becoming a bigger concern than student support. So it's also clear how much the classroom culture has shifted over time. Many say student rights have expanded significantly compared to the past, and the school experience itself looks very different right now. So Keith, how have student rights and school rules specifically changed since your school days?
Well, I'd say it's changed a lot compared to when I was in school, because students' rights have expanded dramatically. In the past, corporal punishment was permitted, meaning teachers were able to beat up the children if they don't listen to you. But in some cases, an entire class would be disciplined for the mistake of just one single student. Boys are required to keep their hairs cropped short, and while the girls were not allowed to grow their hair beyond 3 centimeters below their ears. Dress codes were strictly enforced. Even altering the fit of a school uniform was prohibited. I remember one day having my eyeglasses colored slightly subtle and was punished, and had to go back home and change to a normal clean glass. But today, however, corporal punishment is fundamentally banned in schools. Light makeup or even dyeing hair is often permitted. So overall, there is a far greater respect for individuality than before.
So it sounds like schools today place much more emphasis on individuality and protecting children, but some argue that as students' rights have strengthened, on the other hand, teachers may have lost some authority in the process. So how has that shift made it harder for teachers to guide or discipline children?
Right. As a result of that, there's an assessment that says that teachers' authority has relatively weakened compared to the past. Although corporal punishment has been banned, other systems that allow teachers to discipline their students, whether it be demerit points or grade retention, have not been sufficiently established, leading many teachers to express difficulties in disciplining children. In particular, early career teachers from the millennial and Gen Z generation are said to feel disillusioned with the reality of working in schools, because in Korea, teaching was traditionally considered a very high, secure profession, also known as 철통밥 or iron rice bowl. And so it means you have food for life, job security for life. And in the past, far more teachers intended to stay in schools until retirement. However, according to a 2024 survey, 6 out of 10 fifth-year elementary school teachers are considering changing their careers due to these difficulties we mentioned.
Yeah, I feel like there really is a sense that it's become a much more rigorous job in terms of like controlling the classroom as well. And all this highlights the challenge schools face now, trying to balance student protection education with a sustainable teaching environment. So as a parent, Ki, what kind of school environment do you hope to see moving forward?
Well, it's just not the time being passed, but COVID pandemic sort of pushed the education in an entirely different direction. It'll be more virtual, more digital. Sometimes you see kids doing work not at school but at home, which obviously makes more troublesome for many of the parents. One of the things that I see on the more positive side is that kids nowadays have more choices and they are open to many different opportunities, better environment than before. But then again, we need good direction from both teachers and parents in order for kids to grow, in a nice way.
Right, I agree. So I know your kid's still quite young. What about you?
Not in school yet, but starting the education process, I guess. I'm dreaming of schools where differences are tolerated. We mentioned multicultural families, but not even that, but financial gaps between families, cultural gaps between families, even health conditions that may set kids apart from other kids. I want school to be an environment where we learn how to accept differences and go together, because it's a small society. And schools where students get taught how to think critically on their own and communicate their thoughts. I think this is the core education that is the most important. And yeah, that's what I hope for my son to learn in the future as well.
So as classrooms continue to evolve, one thing remains the same. School is where new beginnings take shape. From smaller class sizes to more connected parents, education is adapting to a changing society. The challenge now is finding the right balance between individual needs and the shared values of community learning. And as students step into a new school year, the hope is that schools remain places of growth and fairness. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Ki.
Thank you.
Coming in, also Niall.
No problem.
And to our viewers, thank you for watching. And I hope that no matter your age, you'll feel that first day of school excitement and anticipation today. We are
News Generation.